Okay, Polymers lesson C2.2.5 with Winnie the Pooh in the corner, so you can all have a good laugh at me on Monday morning. So the obligatory joke slide here. You can pause and have a look to see if you understand the joke or the implication. So we're talking about polymers now. You might want to have certain properties: high or low density, flexible or rigid, high or low thermal conductivity, and you design them so that you have particular properties which you can then use in your application. So by having different arrangements of particles in the structure, you can change the properties that polymer has. So creating larger forces between molecules means you get higher melting points. There's two types: there's thermosetting and thermosoftening. This is a thermosetting polymer. You have these things cross links between the polymer molecules that you can see, these yellow chains here, and it means if you pull strongly, those cross links hold the polymer in shape in place, so the polymer is rigid. Now you may have the thermosoftening or the thermoplastics, which don't have those cross links. They simply have weaker forces between molecules, and those intermolecular forces are quite weak. So you can see on the diagram, you know the forces between each atom and the chain are strong. Forces between the chains are weak. The shorter the molecule, the smaller the force, or the weaker the force. And as that molecule gets bigger, those molecules get bigger, longer chains, then the forces get larger. Okay, so we're going to deal with thermosoftening first of all. So thermosoftening plastics or thermoplastics. They become soft when they're heated, as is the implication from the name. They can be easily moulded and remoulded without really affecting the quality of the individual polymer chains. So you can see here there are various types, which you can then feel free to look up on the internet if you wish. Now, the conditions in which you make a thermoplastic are different. If you want low density polyethylene, then you use these particular conditions, and if you want high density polyethylene, you use these conditions. You don't need to be fully clued up, if you like. You don't need to remember all those facts, but you do need to know that different conditions are involved in making either high or low density polyethylene, which is what we're now going to look at. So low density polyethylene, as you can see, that these have branches coming off the main chain, and these branches or side chains can prevent the long chain or the molecules from lining up in a regular way. So the structure is very irregular, and that means that the forces between the molecules are very weak compared to high density polyethylene. So they have lower melting points, it's more flexible and it's not strong, and the density starts to drop dramatically above room temperature. It also gives you good transparency, so if you want a polymer which you can see through, then low density polyethylene is more useful. Here's a lot of uses. Again, you can pause the video and just look at those when you wish. Now, high density polymers, polyethylene an example again, a high density polyethylene, and you see there's no branches or side chains off each long molecule, so that means they can arrange themselves in a very regular way and very close together. So density packed together, hence the term high density. Gives them a slightly higher melting point, and they're more rigid and stronger than low density polyethylene, and they can be used for conditions above 100 degrees centigrade. Again, lots of uses there, which you can pause and look at. And aside, summing up the difference between low density in terms of the structure and high density in terms of the structure, and how the side chains or branches affect that. So we've got two here, pictures of high and low density polyethylene and particular uses, so bottles or gloves here. We're going to look at some examples in class, and that's going to be the focus of our lesson or lessons this week. We've got some slides here detailing the codes that you get on the sides of the bottles, or products that you get that are made out of plastic, what their properties are, and so on. So you can pause this and read it at your leisure. There's some more there, and then again there's some more there as well. But really the key thing is that you need to be able to explain the properties of thermosoftening polymers based around the idea of intermolecular forces. So you go back to the previous slides if you like and listen again, but it's really this idea that weak forces between the molecules when there are no cross-links. So even if you've got these branched chains, or they're tightly packed together, there's still no cross-links between the molecules. So the force is very weak, which means you need very little or relatively low energy to break them down, to melt them, and that means they can be reshaped and melted very easily. So the opposite case is thermosetting polymers. Again, these are the ones which have the cross links between the molecules. So you can see them on this diagram. It holds the chains in position, so it makes them very rigid and and they are resistant to higher temperatures. So there's an example there which you can look up on the internet. This slide sums up the difference between the two, and I'll put the PowerPoint on to Edmodo as well, so you can see all this text in case you can't see it in the video. So that's goodbye from Winnie the Pooh and goodbye from me.